Hey there, I'm Ameer Salam, and in this particular short video, I'll be teaching you the concept of variable, local and global variable. Now, the topic of variable, it's very fundamental and basic topic in C programming language, and you'll be learning it at a very initial stage itself while learning any programming languages. So in this video I'll be teaching you what are variables and examples, types of variables, user defined primitive variables, as well as local global variables, their scope, lifetime example, and everything I'll be explaining it to you with code itself, right? So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into this video. First is, what is a variable? Variable is the name given to a particular location in a computer memory. Okay, uh, I'll explain it again to you. It is a name given to particular memory location in a memory space, right? And the use cases of variables are, variables can be used in order to store some data which you can later retrieve in order to perform certain operations, right? So it is as simple as it is. Now the categories of variables are, there are two categories. The first is the primitive variable. Now, what is a primitive variable? Primitive variables which have already been defined by the developers of C programming languages, such as integer, float, boolean, character, etc. You can use this primitive data types in order to build your computer program. Whereas there's another type of data types or variables that is known as user defined data types. Now this user defined data types, as the name itself suggests, you can define or create it all by yourself according to your needs and requirement. For example, if you're building any application which requires a different type of variable to store certain value, you can design it on all by yourself. So example of such user defined variables are structure as well as unions. Now what are unions? In simple words, unions are just structure itself, but all the members of this particular structure have got the same memory location. Now let us not make things complicated, and I'll try to explain the concept of variables in a much easy manner, in a very simplified manner. Consider your kitchen to be a memory space of your computer, right? For example, your hard disk is your kitchen, right? Now hard disk or your kitchen will have a separate memory location in your hard disk, and that memory location you can treat it as a separate container. Now you can use this container to store some value, right? It can be anything, the value can be anything. For example, in your kitchen you'll use a container to store different spices, right? You'll use one container to store salt, another to store sugar, another to store some other spices and stuff. The same way, in computer memory you'll have names of certain location, and there you'll be storing different type of data. Now to store numbers you'll be using integer, to store character you'll be using character variable, and so on. So I guess I've simplified the term and concept of variables. Now let us jump into the example code of how we can define and use variables. I'll maximize the screen. So yeah. Now first let me get into this main program, main function. Now we'll declare variable. Now how do we declare variable? Declaration of variable is done using the data type, the type of variable which you're using. It can be integer, boolean, float, character, and then you have to specify a name for that particular variable, and then value for that variable. So three steps. First will be defining the data type. For example, if I'm using an integer, int age, okay, and then I have to give certain value. Now what we'll do is we'll get the value from the user itself. I'll use printf statement, enter your age, okay. Now this will ask the user to enter his name. Now we'll use scanf in order to read the age, right? Okay, with this we are printing a text asking the user to enter his age, then we are reading his age. Now we have got to print it, right, on the screen. Okay, now return statement, and let us execute this program. Okay, so it's asking me to enter my age. My age is 20. So 20 is your age. See, this is how simple it is. I'm using a variable of type integer named age to store my age. So this is how simple it is. Now let us get into the local and global variables. Now what makes this variable to fall into this category of local and global variable? It is the position of your where you position your variable in entire code. For example, if you place it outside any function, that becomes a global variable. If you place it inside any block of a code or a function, it becomes a local variable. Now I'll be explaining this to you using this simple code. I've already written this code. Okay, what we're doing here is, as you can see, in line number 4, we have a global variable. Now this global variable has been declared outside of this main function. That is, it has been declared outside of any function, whereas the integer name has been defined inside a particular function. That is the main function. Now I'll be asking the user to enter age. Then I'll be asking him to I'll be printing out the name as well as his favorite number, and the favorite number here I have declared is 3. As you can see, enter age will enter 20, and then your age is 20 and your favorite number is 3. You can see the program is fetching the value from age, that is the local variable, and then it is fetching value from the global variable, that is the favorite number. Okay, now let us get dive deep into this concepts. Let us understand what are local variables. First, a declaration of local variables. As I said, local variables are declared inside any specific block or a function in a code. That means they're not declared outside. They'll live inside a particular function. As you can see, the age, integer age, the variable age, which lives inside the function int main. Okay. Now the scope. Local variables have got very limited scope. Now what is a limited scope? They cannot be accessed outside of that particular function. That means if you have declared the variable age inside main function, the value which is stored inside this variable age is accessible or available only to this particular function. Any other function, if it tries to access this value, it won't be able to fetch that particular value. So the scope of local variables is limited to that particular function itself. They cannot be accessed outside of that particular function. And also lifetime. Now what is lifetime? Just like other living creatures, even variables have got their own lifetime. Local variables lifetime is as same as the function in which they have been defined. That means they're created once the execution of that particular function block is started, and once the execution of this particular function is done, it is destroyed with its variables. That means the lifetime of a local variable is as same as the lifetime of its function. Now let us see how local and global variable works with this particular example code. As you can see, I'll copy this code and I'll explain this code to you. Now I've declared two functions, right? One is the main function and another one is func. That is another function. I've just named it func. Now once we get into the integer int main, the main function, we have this the local variable number. I have declared a local variable called number and I have initialized its value 0. Now what I'm doing is I'm asking the user to enter the number which will be storing into this particular variable space. Once I get the number, I'll be printing the number. But what's happening in the other function, that is the func, is we're trying to access a local variable. As you can see, number, that is the variable named number, has been declared inside the function main. So it is a local variable which is declared in function, main function, but it cannot be accessed by this particular function. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we're trying to access a local variable number. So let us try to execute this particular program. As you can see, we have got an error. Now how to debug this error? What if I comment this particular line? We'll get no errors. See, no errors. Enter the number 20, 30, or I've got the number. Now in order to fix this error without commenting, what I've got to do is I've got to make this local variable a global variable. If I enter it over here, place it over here, as you can see, now I'll get no errors as it has become a global variable, and both main as well as the function func functions can access this particular value. See, 20, I've got both the number entered is 20, accessing local variable 20. So I guess you've got a basic idea of how local variables work now. Now let us get into global variables. Global variables are as same as local variable, but they are declared outside any particular function. As you can see, the variable number is now declared outside both function main as well as func, right? So it can be accessed by both of these functions. As well as the scope is unlimited. It can be accessed across the particular code by any function, so it has got no limitations of accessibility. As well as the lifetime, these global variables are created once the code starts executing, and they're destroyed once the code is done with execution. So as you can see, I'll the same code I can use the same code in order to demonstrate global variable. Int number is now a global variable which can be accessed by both function main as well as the function func. So it is as simple as it is. Now let us summarize the entire learning, using a table. As you can see here, where are they declared? Global variables are declared outside any particular block of code or a function, whereas local variables are declared inside a block or a function. Declaration, they're declared, global variables are they're declared in the very beginning itself. As you can see, right after defining the library functions, we have declared the global variables, whereas the local variables are declared inside a function at the very start of the at the very initial lines of a particular function. Then the scope of local variable is limited to that particular function. Scope of a global variable is not limited to any function. It can be accessed across the code by any functions. Okay. Lifetime of a local variable is limited, and it has the lifetime as the same as its function code, function block, whereas the global variable has got the lifetime of its the code itself, right? Until the code is being executed, the global variable will stay in the memory. Once the code is done with execution, the global variable is destroyed. Now the most important part is default value. Once we declare global variables are given initial value of 0, whereas local variables are not given any initial value. If you don't initialize it, they'll be containing a garbage value. So I hope I have cleared the concept of variable, local and global variable. If so, then hit the like button and consider sharing, following, and sharing my profile with your friends and coding buddies. Okay, so that's all for this particular video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.